Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Fire Emblem 3 Houses Only Love Can Hurt Like This Part 1 in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 6, Heart to Heart. At dinner, Linhard was sitting by himself at a table. Usually, Casper was with him, but not today. He looked rather sad. Dorothea set her tray down across from him and sat down. "Linhard? What's going on?" she asked, glancing around. He had a plate of mashed potatoes and brown sugar carrots in front of him. He let out a sigh, looking up when Dorothea walked over. "Good evening." He yawned. "What do you mean, what's going on?" "I'm just having some dinner." His food looked mostly untouched. He leaned his head against his hand. "Well, first off, dinner has been on for 10 minutes and you haven't eaten anything. And you look sadder than usual. Where's Casper?" "Not here," Linhard said, looking around before he looked back at Dorothea. "It's been a few days. He just hasn't shown up. We usually eat dinner together, so it's an odd feeling, not having my best friend here. Usually by this point I'm telling him to slow down and take smaller bites. He's always excited to dig in, but he hasn't even showed up." "What? And you're telling me you haven't gone to check on him yet?" she asked with a small frown. She stood up. "Come on. Let's go." "Well, I've seen him around, but I haven't actually gone to his room or anything. It's a lot of walking anyway." "Oh? We're going now?" "Okay," he sighed and got up, walking along with her. "He's been avoiding me since the dance," he told Dorothea. "Really now? I guess that makes both of us." "He hasn't talked to me or Ingrid since either," she said as they arrived at the dorms. She knocked on Casper's door. "I mean, after he shoved me, I did tell him to talk to me only after he calmed down. But I meant that night, not days." He looked down when they got to his door. Casper answered right away, but when he saw who was there, he frowned. What are you guys doing here?" He looked between them, looking a little like he didn't know what to do. "We're bringing you to dinner." "Come on," she said, stepping back and waving him towards her. "You can't keep skipping dinner just because you're a little embarrassed." "Nope. Nope. Casper shook his head and backed away. "Not happening. And I'm not skipping dinner. I'm eating in here." He met eyes with Linhard for a second, then very quickly looked away. He went to close the door, but Linhard put his hand on it to stop it. "Why haven't you talked to me yet?" he asked. Casper paused. He trailed off. "Casper, come on. All is forgiven," she said, pushing the door open wider again. "You're the only one still hooked up on that night. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who made everyone angry or pushed your best friend down and hurt him." Casper replied, heated. Linhard said, "Casper, we forgive you dash." "No. How could you?" "Because I..." "Stop. Linhard, you told me to talk to you again when I've calmed down, but clearly I haven't." Casper said. "I hurt you, and I was going to hurt Dorothea. I don't want to do it again. So you better leave before I slam the door in your face or something." "It doesn't work that way, Casper," Dorothea said with a small chuckle. "Come on, we want you to come to dinner with us." She smiled. "It's either that or we're bringing our dinner in here." "You're really forgiving me that easily? Guys, I ruined your whole night. Both of you." He looked between them. "I'm an awful friend, if you even want to call me that after what I did." Linhard usually would have given up by now, but he stayed. "We want you to sit with us." "Casper, I want my best friend back." Casper waited a while, then suddenly shut the door on them. Linhard looked to Dorothea, wondering what they did wrong. "Dorothea, it's no use. He's not coming. He didn't leave though. You're really gonna give up? This is Casper we're talking about, we can easily sway him." Dorothea knocked on the door again. "Casper." Right when Dorothea was about to knock, the door opened again. "Didn't wanna forget my coat. It's kinda chilly today." He put on his coat as he walked out, getting a head start. He turned around to face them after he was several feet away. "You guys coming or what?" Linhard exchanged a glance with Dorothea. She smiled and then skipped forward. Come on, Linhard. Your dinner's gonna get cold, she said as they entered the dining hall. I presume it's already cold by now. He continued walking to the dining hall, sitting in his seat. Casper sat across from him with a big plate of protein and carbs. He said, So is Ingrid coming? He looked at Dorothea. Dorothea shook her head with a small frown. No, she's sitting with Mercedes and Annette today, she said quickly, looking down at her plate. Oh. Well, I thought she might be sitting here. You know, just because. He shrugged. Never mind then. He started eating. I thought she might like my leftover meat or something. I was gonna offer it to her as an apology. He spoke with his mouth full. Yeah, she probably would like that, Dorothea said, putting one of the carrots in her mouth. She smiled sadly down at her plate and took a sip of her drink. Linhard noticed she looked kinda sad as he picked at his dinner. He sat and chatted with the two for a while, but got up earlier than both of them. You know, I'm awfully tired. I think I'm going to head out. He looked at Dorothea like he wanted her to follow him, though. Casper. It was nice to have you back. Really? But I gotta go. Yeah, I'm used to it. Casper said, You're always tired. I'll see ya in the morning. He waved. Linhard walked to the doors, made eye contact with Dorothea, then left. Dorothea cleared her throat. I need to go too, I'm full, she said, standing up. Thank you for sitting with us, Casper, she said with a small smile before putting her tray away and scurrying out the door towards Linhard. Casper waved again. Yep. Don't mention it. I'm just glad I'm back to being good buds with all of you. He finished a bite of his food. See you later. Linhard was outside in the hallway, sitting on a stone bench against the wall. He didn't look up until he saw Dorothea coming. Sorry. You didn't have to follow me. I just have a question, I guess. No, I enjoy speaking with you, she said, smoothing out her skirt as she sat beside him on the bench. What's going on? Linhard shook his head as he thought to himself for a moment, but then eventually spoke. You seemed upset at dinner. At least, it appeared so to me. It was when Casper mentioned Ingrid, and I was wondering if everything is okay with you too. Ah, right. Ingrid, she said with a sad smile. Things are good, yes. She nodded. Not the way I would like them to be, but they're good for now, she said slowly. Does she not like you back? Linhard curiously asked. I may be overstepping your boundaries, but I don't know. You looked upset. Yes. She made it very clear that she just wants to remain friends, she said, sounding choked up. But she said she cares for me more than anything. I'm very confused. Linhard tilted his head, feeling sorry for her. Oh, he paused. I'm sorry. That can't feel too good. He scooted over so that she could sit with him. Life can be cruel. Especially when it comes to the affairs of the heart. Perhaps this is just an affair that needs some more time. I wouldn't count on that. Ingrid is really set on marrying for her family, she informed him. Thank you for your sympathy though. I appreciate it, she said with a small smile. He didn't smile back. Instead, he just stared at the ground for a while before slowly looking back up, and it almost looked like he might cry or something. His voice was a little shaky. How do you deal with it? He asked. She asked, suddenly seeming alarmed. Deal with what? Loving someone who will never love you back. She asked with a small frown. He nodded in response to her question, but didn't verbally say anything. It was probably because he didn't want her to hear the shakiness in his voice. He had a major lump in his throat. Linhard, she spoke quietly, her voice wavering with emotion. Come here, you sweet thing. She leaned forward and gave him a hug. I think we have much to discuss. He let her hug him. He usually wouldn't do something like this in the middle of the hallway, but he really needed the support. He buried his face in her shoulder, trying his best not to let out any tears. I need to collect myself. I'm not usually this poorly put together. He took a deep breath. But I know you understand. Do not apologize. I hope you know how much I understand, she said quietly. He picked his head up, nodding. It seemed like it was pretty difficult for him to talk about. He's clueless. Absolutely clueless, Dorothea, and I know, no matter what, my feelings will never be returned. He lowered his voice so nobody around them would hear. I call him my best friend, but he's so much more than that to me. Dorothea smiled, drying her tears on her sleeve. We're very much alike, she told him. And to answer your question, I don't deal with it. I cry a lot. She occupies so much of my mind and it kills me to know she doesn't feel the same. I've just dealt with it for so long that I'm good at smiling through the pain. But the pain doesn't go away, really. It's always there, she said with a small sigh. She started to cry more than she wanted to. It makes, she sniffled, hiding her face in her hands. It makes me realize that my thoughts are true, about me being unworthy of love. She hugged him again, tightly this time. Linhard let her speak, his eyes sad. He was doing his best to hold himself together. Her words made him feel sadder as she went on, though. He was half sad for himself, half sad for her. After she finished her last sentence, a troubled look appeared on his face and he hugged her back. Whatever makes you think that? Dorothea, if I've learned anything in the past few weeks, it's that you deserve someone who will love you unconditionally. We weren't particularly close before, but I'm glad we are now. He didn't let go of her. I don't normally put this much effort into helping people, but you? I can't say I'm lying when I tell you that I wish the best for you. Especially, now. You're so sweet. She sniffled, backing out of the hug. I've never been in an actual relationship. I've always been too strung up on Ingrid. If my own best friend doesn't love me, then who will? She explained. Maybe it's silly, but the love I'm feeling right now is making up for it. She told him. I hope you are able to feel the same way. Me neither. He admitted. Casper and I have been friends since we were 6 years old. I don't want to ruin what we have. He means more to me than anything. And I don't tell him that enough, he's oblivious to everything. I could tell him directly and he still wouldn't know how I feel. He shook his head, then took another deep breath. Maybe. It does feel rather nice to be able to talk about it. He looked at Dorothea. Thank you. I'm glad to have someone who understands me. And I'm here for you too. Okay. The doors to the dining hall opened, and Casper walked into the hall, wiping his mouth off on his sleeve. He saw them sitting together and just sorta stared from afar for a few moments, looking confused. Dorothea looked at Casper, then back at Linhard. Don't tell him anything you're not comfortable revealing, she whispered, then turned back around and waved to Casper. I wasn't planning on it, he said softly, collecting himself as Casper walked over. Casper waved, then stopped in front of them. Hey, you guys alright? Linhard, you're usually sleeping by now. I thought you were going to bed. He looked between the two of them, a little suspicious. Linhard fell asleep on this bench on his way to bed. Dorothea chuckled, standing up. I woke him up. He's such a sleepyhead. She waved her hand around as she spoke. Casper started laughing. Ha. That's definitely something he would do. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. Linhard faked a drowsy smile. Yep, good thing she woke me up. Or I would have faced an exhausting lecture from Seath about how it isn't safe to fall asleep in a place like this. Casper pulled Linhard up from the bench. Come on. I'll keep you awake on the way to your room. I'm loud, you'll make it back with no problem. He started guiding Linhard down the hall. It didn't really look like Linhard wanted to go with Casper. He turned his head back to Dorothea and gave her a pained look before they turned the corner. She winced as she waved goodbye to the both of them. She was about to enter the dining hall, but instead made her way to the gardens. Chapter 7, Lord and Liege. Dido was in the greenhouse, just finishing planting some seeds. Dmitri entered the greenhouse to go pick something up, but then saw Dido and quickly started walking out, like he was trying to avoid him for some reason. Your Highness? Dido asked, turning to face him. Are you looking for something in here? He asked. He froze when he heard Dido's voice, turning around rather slowly. Oh. Didu. I didn't see you there. And yes, I just came in here to pick up my herbs. He pocketed a small bag. Something is the matter. Are you hurt? Is it your head again? He asked nervously. Well, yes. It is, but you needn't worry about me, Didu. Please get back to whatever it is that you were doing. He started backing up. I'm sorry, but you can't ask me to do that. He walked over to him. What can I do to assist you? Just name it. For some reason, Dmitri looked a little annoyed. Didu, I said that I'm fine, okay? He frowned. If you want to do anything for me, I'd suggest leaving me be. Oh, he stopped moving. Right. Okay. I hope you feel better soon, Your Highness. He seemed hurt by his comment. Thank you. Now, if you will excuse me. He started walking again, but after he made it out, something didn't feel right. He stopped, waited a few moments, then turned back around to approach Didu. Look, Didu. I think we need to talk. Okay, let's talk. He said, pulling the doors to the greenhouse closed so nobody would bother them. I'm listening. He looked back at the doors, then back at Didu. Didu, I'm worried about you. You're always putting me above yourself, so much that I'm frightened you're neglecting yourself to serve me. It's concerning, really, he frowned. I want you to start putting yourself first. That's an order. What? Your Highness, please do not worry about me. I have been eating 3 square meals a day, getting plenty of water and adequate rest. That's all I need in order to serve you. Didu, I'm trying to tell you that I don't need you looking after me all the time. I'm a capable individual, but there are times when I will need you. And when those times arise, I will come and find you. But I don't want your thoughts to be of me every waking moment. I want you to be able to enjoy everything life has to offer. I feel as though I'm robbing that experience from you. What? He seemed shocked. Why would you say that? I enjoy spending every waking moment assisting you. He told him, I do owe you, after all. Dmitri sighed. How else can I put this so that you will understand? He put a hand to his head, thinking, before he found the right words. Didu, I am not angry with you. I could never be angry with you. I see your good intentions. Truly. So, I am asking you this only because I love you, so do not tire yourself out by watching over me, understand? He crossed his arms. You don't owe me a thing. Not a single thing, Didu. His eyes widened. We have discussed this several times. He told Dmitri, but he had never heard him say that to him. He blushed slightly. You keep saying I owe you nothing, but these are my feelings. I enjoy helping you. Because I love you dearly as well. Yes, and each time you refuse to listen to my... He suddenly stopped talking, looking embarrassed. He raised his hand to his mouth, like he didn't mean to say what he said. I didn't. I just... He was at a loss of words for a moment, and he took a few steps back. I didn't mean to say it that way. What I meant is, I have a high regard for you and your well-being, and although you may feel you are in debt to me, you don't owe me anything. He backed up into a crate of gardening supplies and tripped backwards. Your Highness! Didu gasped, leaping forward and catching him before he hit the ground. He cradled him like a little goo-goo baby. Are you all right? He frantically asked. He tried to stop his fall by regaining his balance, but he wasn't quick enough and fell into Didu's arms. He looked flustered. I'm fine. Let me go, please, Didu. He suddenly tensed up. Take deep breaths, he said, gently setting Dmitri down on his feet. I'm just glad you're all right. You would have fallen right into the cactus plants, he said. Dmitri felt bad realizing that he never said thank you, and looked sort of guilty. Thank you for catching me, he looked down. I don't mind you rescuing me when my life is at risk. Or when I'm in danger of receiving injuries, such as this time, but do not sweat the little things. He looked away from Didu. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I feel comfortable helping you. I understand you can handle yourself, but I know how you get. I'm going to help you in any way I can. Didu. Dmitri suddenly raised his voice. Are you not understanding a word I am saying? I need some space from you. Yes, I enjoy your company. Yes, I'm thankful for your services, but there's more to life than helping me out, Didu. How many times do I have to tell you for that to sink in? Didu got silent. He looked devastated. He backed up slightly without saying a word, then turned around and crouched down, silently tending to his plants. Dmitri let out a sigh, then turned around to leave. He muttered something under his breath, but as he went to open the doors he collapsed on the ground. Didu rose to his feet immediately and ran to Dmitri's side. He cradled him like a goo-goo baby once more. Your Highness? He asked, looking down at his face. He was out for about 30 seconds, then opened his eyes. Upon closer look, he seemed really stressed out. This time he just let Didu hold him. I'm sorry. I need you, Didu. He let out a huge sigh of relief. Your Highness, do not apologize please. May I carry you to your room? He asked for permission. How is your head? No, Didu, I do need to apologize. I snapped at you. I lost control for a moment and he closed his eyes. I need some rest. My head is throbbing. I think I can walk back myself. He stood up out of Didu's arms, but got dizzy and slowly sank back down. This isn't good. Please. He stuttered, holding him up from under his shoulders. Do not push yourself. Come. I'll make sure we're not seen. He scooped Dmitri up once more and carried him to his room, making sure no students saw them in the process. Or so he thought. He laid Dmitri down on the bed. Dmitri was a little embarrassed at first, but the dizziness he felt overpowered the embarrassment and he was fine with being carried. He didn't notice anybody nearby, he didn't necessarily want anyone seeing, but he'd come up with an explanation eventually. Once they were up, he let Didu put him down, and he stared up at the ceiling. I'm sorry. He quietly said. Please save your energy. I do not require an apology. If anything I owe you one, he said. I'm so sorry for smothering you. He bowed his head. I will be back, Your Highness. He turned around and left, then returned with a glass of water. He sat up carefully, propping himself up with his pillow. He sat back against his wall as he waited for Didu, gladly accepting the glass of water from him. I'm just stressed out. I didn't mean to snap at you, okay? I wasn't paying any attention to my words. He took a sip of water. You're not smothering me, Didu. I was speaking senselessly. He took the herbs out of his pocket and handed them to Didu. I'm taking herbal remedies to help with the stress. They're potent and bitter, but that doesn't bother me one bit. Would you mind crushing them up for me? He nodded slightly. Of course. He had all of the supplies in his bag already. He began crushing it up. Please, no more apologies. He said. I can't fathom how much I hurt you with my words, though. Dmitri said. I didn't feel right walking away after scolding you. He watched Didu crush up the herbs. My stress is worsening. It's making me lash out unexpectedly, Didu, and you didn't deserve that. All you wanted to do was help and I denied it so selfishly. Your Highness, he said, smiling brightly at him, I accept your apology. Now you focus on getting better. Would you like me to cook these herbs into a nice meal for you? He didn't smile back, but he liked seeing that Didu looked happy, especially after yelling at him. He really didn't deserve Didu. He shook his head. Honestly, it doesn't matter how I take them. I think I'd prefer to take them straight from the bowl, if that's okay, but if you want to cook me a nice meal, I won't stop you. But if you're going to make me, make something for yourself as well. Here. He handed Dmitri the bowl with a little spoon in it. They should be ready to eat now. I crushed it up with some basil and parsley as well, that should make it taste far less bitter. He said. Dmitri took the bowl from him. It may be a wasted effort, but, thank you. He sat up a little straighter and looked down at the bowl. You know I can't taste this, right? He stirred the herbs a little bit. What do you mean? he asked, moving closer and looking down into the bowl. You heard me, Didu. I can't taste this. He let go of the spoon. I lost my sense of taste, he admitted, looking a bit crestfallen. It's been gone for 4 years. What? Why have you not told me this? He asked with a small frown. You always tell me that you love the taste of my cooking. And you told me the herbs were bitter. Is this why you wouldn't tell me your favorite food? He asked. You put so much effort into your cooking that I never had the heart to tell you. I'm sorry, Didu, he said. I only know it's bitter because that's what I've been told. So taking the remedy without additives is no problem for me. He ate the herbs without scrunching his face up or rejecting them. Don't apologize. Do you know how it happened? He asked curiously. Can we restore your sense of taste? He sounded hopeful. Dmitri put the empty bowl on his bedside table, taking a few gulps of water to wash down the dryness the leaves left behind. I'm not sure. I believe it's a symptom of my condition, he sighed. Not to bring your hopes down, but I don't think it's something I can regain. At least, I don't think so. Especially now that I seem to be on the decline. Your Highness. Your life seems to be one big struggle at the moment, he said, putting the bowl away into his bag. Mercedes told me that a good way to help a friend out of despair is a hug. Just ask if you ever want one of those. At the moment. He let out a small huff. Not to pity myself, but my whole life has pretty much been utter despair. Save for the rare happy times. And you? He gave Didu a sincere look. He just stared at him for a while before leaning over and giving him a heartfelt hug. Oh, Didu felt himself blushing for some reason. He smiled gently to himself and returned the hug. I feel the same way, Your Highness. He backed out of the hug. Are you unhappy, Didu? He asked, looking concerned. I don't want that for you. If there's anything I can do, tell me. No. I am not unhappy when I am with you, he said. And you owe me nothing. You don't have to do anything for my sake, he said. Besides that, how are you feeling? Not as bad as before, thanks to the herbs. And you, he said, looking at Didu, then away. This episode probably would have gotten a lot worse if you weren't there to help me, you know. It's my pleasure, Your Highness, he said, bowing slightly. Would you like to be left alone? Dmitri answered rather quickly, reaching out to put his hand on top of Didu's as he spoke. No, he realized where he put his hand, though, and took it away. I mean, you can stay here and keep me company while I rest, if your schedule allows. Didu blushed again. Of course I will stay. There is nothing I would rather do, he said with a small smile. Thank you. Dmitri laid down so that he was on his back, but suddenly turned on his side so that his back was facing Didu. He stared at the wall of his room feeling a bit conflicted, not wanting Didu to see his face. Didu didn't say anything for a while. The only sound was a few nervous throat clears from Didu. A short while later, a heavy weight could be felt on the bed behind Dmitri. His mind was racing as he stared, but the herbs were starting to make him feel relaxed, so he closed his eyes and started to fall asleep. He took a deep breath and was about to drift off, but felt the weight and opened his eyes, quickly turning around. Didu. Didu was sitting on the edge of the bed. My apologies, Your Highness. He said. Would you like me to stand up? He was reading a book. Oh, no, it's okay. You may resume your reading. I just was falling asleep and started when you sat down. He cleared his throat, then settled back down. The chair is rather rigid. I understand if the bed is more comfortable. He faced the wall again. My apologies. His voice sounded a little shaky, but he cleared it to ground himself. Sleep well, he said with a small nod. He definitely caught the shakiness in his voice and turned back around, looking concerned and confused. What's the matter? Didu, you can't hide it from me, I know you too well. I don't think I've ever heard your voice waver like that. Nothing is the matter. He said. I just I'm doing a greenery crossword puzzle and I'm getting my plants mixed up. This is not like me at all. Oh. Well, unfortunately I probably wouldn't be much help with that. I'd probably deter your progress rather help you along, besides, my head needs a break. He took a deep breath, then turned around again to go to sleep. Did let out a deep breath, glad he didn't alert Dmitri to anything else that may have been going on inside his head. He turned around quietly, watching Dmitri lovingly as he slept. After that, Dmitri slept peacefully for the remainder of the time. Chapter 8, Monastery Murder Mystery. Around 9 p.m. the next evening, a scream rang out from inside the monastery, waking a lot of people. Hubert was already up, so he ran toward the noise to check it out. What was that? Hilda exclaimed as she ran outside, bumping into Shezi as she exited her room. Shezi looked down at her. I was thinking the same thing. Hey, is that the creepy guy from the Black Eagles? She noticed Hubert and followed him. Did you hear that as well? She asked, with Hilda trailing close behind. Hubert looked at them as they met up. That blood-curdling scream. Of course I did. It came from the courtyard. He started leading the way when they got there. There was a girl laying dead on the floor with a knife in her head. Hubert didn't react too strongly, but he did gasp a little as he stood over her. How ghastly! Hilda screamed and turned away, hiding her face in her hands. What happened here? She exclaimed fearfully. Shezi stood in front of her. Don't look, Hilda, she directed her attention up to Hubert. Do you know anything about this? It appears one of our fellow students has suffered an unfortunate fate. Hubert studied the body, and then Edelgard came running over. Oh no, how could this have happened? She muttered. Lady Edelgard, are you unharmed? Hubert asked. Yes. I'm fine. But whoever did this is still out here. They can't be far. Seath came running out. What in the blazes is going on? He saw the sight. Good heavens, this is atrocious. We need to initiate lockdown protocol immediately. A group of guards obeyed him, ushering the students toward the officers' academy. Claude came out of the dorms and stood behind Hilda and Shezi. What the desh, he mumbled. Is anyone else hurt? We need to take attendance. All of the students arrived at the officers' academy for attendance. Dmitri accounted for everyone in his house, and so did Edelgard. They all showed up sooner or later, looking confused as to what was going on. Claude ended up counting everyone from his house as well, except for Ignatz and Raphael. Should someone go check the infirmary? Claude shouted. I'll go. Leonie volunteered, racing up the steps to go check on them. At the time, Raphael was in bed, sitting up. He looked much better since the day he was stabbed. What's going on? He sounded really concerned. Are we in danger? Ignatz was painting a picture at his bedside. He stood up when Leonie came in. Leonie. Are you all right? Please tell us what's going on. Someone got stabbed in the head down by the gazebo, and we're all going on lockdown to find the culprit, so, you guys should come with me. We can help Raphael get down there if he can't move well enough on his own. Raphael sat on the edge of his bed. That's awful, who would do a thing like that? I don't know, this is all so scary, Ignatz mumbled, helping Raphael to his feet. Come on, let's go meet up with our class. They slowly made their way down to the Golden Deer classroom. For being injured, Raphael was doing a good job maneuvering. I don't care that I'm injured. If anything or anyone tries to hurt you, Ignatz, I'm gonna protect you. Oh. I'd do the same for you. Ignatz told Raphael as they sat down in their seats. Seath was thinking to himself off to the side. This had to have been an outside job. Everyone is here, could someone have snuck into the monastery? Thank goodness you two are safe. Claude breathed, as soon as Ignatz and Raphael were accounted for. Unless, Seath turned around. Unless we have a traitor amongst our school. He peered at all the students and staff. Ash overheard him. What? You think, one of us is the culprit? He looked nervous to be accused. It obviously wasn't him who did it. Hilda cried, this is terrible. Who would do this to another student? She wailed, hugging Marianne tightly. I'm scared, Marianne mumbled. Flame clung to Seath's arm, whimpering slightly and burying her face into his puffy sleeve. Seeth held Flame close. I won't let anything happen to you. I promise. Stay close, please. He looked down at her, worried. Flame nodded, squeezing his arm tighter. Ash took Mercedes' hand to try and comfort her. It's scary, but we all have each other, right? It's not so bad when friends are around to make things brighter. I just hope we're safe here. Mercedes squeezed Ash's hand. We will be safe here. Ria won't let anything bad happen to any of us, she assured him. For all we know, Lawrence stated, the culprit could be any one of us. How can I trust even my own house now? Lysithea rolled her eyes. Lawrence, you're not setting a very good alibi for yourself, are you? You sound very suspicious. You think the culprit is me? He put a hand to his chest. Absurd. If anything, I suspect Hubert. He pointed at Hubert, who just stood there staring creepily. Edelgard shook her head. It wasn't Hubert. He was the one who discovered the scene, after all. It was probably one of those rats from Abyss, a random girl said. A random soldier ran up to Didu and seized him. Obviously this one's to blame for all of this. He's from Dusker, he's got guilty written all over his slimy face. Dimitri stormed over to the guard holding Didu. It wasn't him. When the guard seized Didu, he didn't falter at all. I was expecting this would happen, Didu said quietly. Please, unhand me. He gazed sadly at Dimitri. You heard him, Dimitri started. Let him go. My orders. He glared at the guards, who let go of Didu after Dimitri scolded them. Besides, he was with me the whole time. He's innocent. He gave Didu a protective look. Didu walked to Dimitri's side, putting a hand on his shoulder and nodding thankfully towards him. Claude held his hands out. Okay everybody, simmer down. He exclaimed. Hanneman can analyze the knife and see if he can find any information on what could have happened. Do you think he can find fingerprints on the knife? Leonie asked. If so, the culprit is in some very hot water. There's no questioning a DNA sample, that's for sure. That probably means we'll all have to give Hanneman fingerprint samples. But from now on, at least for the Golden Deer, I want everyone to find a roommate. Nobody sleeps alone until it's deemed safe. Marianne and Hilda teamed up, as well as Ignatz and Raphael. Leonie partnered up with Lysithea before Lawrence could butt in, leaving him partnerless. Claude made his way over to Shezi, doing anything that he could to avoid having to share a room with Lawrence. Byleth offered to let Lawrence stay with her, just so that she could keep him safe if anything were to happen. While all the professors were examining the body, all of the students were ordered to head to safety. Linhard stood off to the side and gagged because he couldn't stand how gross it was. Ferdinand led his entire house into the common room instead of pairing up, they all decided to stick together. Dimitri kept counting the members of his house to make sure they were all really there. When he accounted for everyone, he took them into the classroom as well. All of the doors were locked so that they were safe inside. All of the Golden Deer secured themselves inside their rooms. In the common room, Bernadetta was crouched in the corner with her hands above her head. Dorothea and Petra were chatting at one of the tables, and Monica was leaned up against the wall. In the Blue Lion's classroom, Didu was sitting alone at one of the seats far from the others, staring at the ground. Mercedes and Annette were standing with Ash and Felix, who seemed really nervous for some reason. Ingrid was sitting with Sylvain at a table. Sylvain sighed, putting his hand in his head. I just don't get it. Really? Who would want to murder such a beautiful girl? And for what? It doesn't make sense. Sylvain! Ingrid shouted, slamming her fist on the table, how insensitive can you be? Sylvain frowned. Ingrid. I talked to that girl at the ball. I knew her. Albeit for one night, but I knew her and she was kind and smart and just, downright gorgeous. She didn't deserve death, that's for sure. She was a priestess. He didn't look up at Ingrid. Sylvain, you need to shut your mouth. Stop it. She stood up. How many times do we need to remind you to think before you speak? I'm just saying I knew her. I'm not being insensitive. How is it an insult to be kind and beautiful and smart? I'm upset about her death, Ingrid. He stood up as well. Ash sort of looked scared that they might fight. Ingrid didn't answer, she just turned and walked away from him, sitting near Ash instead. Ferdinand paced back and forth. How can this be? He shook his head, thinking to himself. He folded his hands behind his back. How great would it be if I found the one behind this mess? He looked up, noticing Monica. He walked over. Do you know anything about who did this? Monica shook her head. I have absolutely no idea. No leads, no anything, she told Ferdinand. Seeth was walking outside, jiggling the handles of the doors to make sure they were locked/testing the students to see if they wouldn't open the doors. Well, I'm beating up whoever did this. Casper shouted, angry. I am having worries about this, Petra mumbled. Dorothea sighed. It'll be okay guys, we all need to calm down. Chapter 9, He Loves Me Not. A week had passed since the murder, and the monastery was still under intense investigation. Although security was tight, the commotion died down as the Knights of Syros were dispatched to take care of the case, leaving the students out of the investigation. Sylvain came back from training, still pretty sweaty since he didn't get to take a shower. He walked into his room where there was a pretty, handwritten, cursive note sitting on his desk that read, "Meet me behind the wall next to the cathedral." Whoa, he suddenly felt his heart flutter, double taking the note since he thought he must be dreaming. Wait, I'm all sweaty. He made a quick trip to the bathhouse and rinsed off. After that, he made sure that his hair looked nice before rushing out of his dorm to go to the cathedral. Hello. He said, walking down the stairs. It's Sylvain. If there's a pretty lady waiting for me on the other side of the wall, you can come out now. I want to see how beautiful you are in person. Stop that. Felix stepped out from behind the wall. It's me, you idiot, he said with a small frown. He grabbed Sylvain's arm and pulled him behind the wall. What? He looked like he was met with the biggest letdown of all. Really? It was just you? Were you trying to trick me or something? If so, that wasn't nice. He wasn't expecting Felix to pull him. What's wrong? Seriously, why did you bring me down here? He glanced around. He sighed, looking away. Never mind. Just forget it if you are not happy to see me. He turned away from Sylvain. You're confusing me, Felix. I want to know why you wrote me that note. I really thought it was gonna be a dame. He crossed his arms. So, if you weren't pulling a mean prank, then why did you pass me that note? Felix frowned. He didn't answer. He just looked up at Sylvain for a while with a tight frown. Sylvain stared back, wildly confused. Well? Are you gonna say something? He slowly shook his head. If you're not gonna talk to me, I think I'd better go. Honestly, you're being really weird. God, Sylvain, how many hints do I need to drop? He whispered harshly before grabbing Sylvain by the shoulders and pulling him forward, kissing him. What hints? What are you? He went rigid when Felix pulled him in, visibly shocked. He didn't really resist, but it didn't seem like he totally liked it either. He gave Felix a small push to get him to back away. Felix backed up, his face pink. He wiped his mouth with the back of his sleeve and took a deep breath, looking up at Sylvain. Sylvain was speechless, and obviously flustered. He stared back at Felix too, a look of wild confusion on his face. He couldn't believe what just happened and that he was part of it. He slowly started backing up. He turned to leave, but changed his mind at the last second. He walked straight up to Felix again and kissed him back. Felix pulled away after a short while. He started to say something, but seemed at a loss for words. Sylvain. He frowned, thanks. He stared for a moment, still bewildered even though he started it the second time. You're welcome. He looked around, wanting to make sure that they were alone and that nobody else saw. I'm so stupid. Felix snapped, putting his hands on the sides of his head and looking down. Do you remember our promise? He asked Sylvain quickly. Our promise? I don't follow. He was still having a hard time thinking straight since he was still confused about what just happened. Seriously? Are you being serious? Our promise? From when we were kids. We promised to spend our lives with one another, and that one of us can't die unless the other dies first. Do you remember this? Oh. Right. Right. I guess my mind just went blank for a moment. He put a hand to his head. What does this have to do with? He sort of trailed off, wondering what else Felix had to say. God, it sounds so stupid. He backed up and leaned against the wall. But when that student was killed, for some reason all my brain could think about was your stupid face. He scoffed. I kept getting the feeling that you would be next. Felix. He walked up to him, then waved his hand before his eyes. Is that really you in there? He raised his eyebrows. Am I hearing this right? You're actually showing your feelings? You're telling me that you care about me, and all this time I did not think you were capable of that. He realized he was raising his voice, so he lowered his volume again. If you're really that worried, why don't we stick together? I mean, that way we have each other's backs. You know. Of course I care, he scoffed, even though he didn't want to admit it. And you really don't get it, do you? Yeah. I want to stick together. For the rest of our lives. He looked away again. Sylvain fell into another bewildered stare, his mouth slightly parted. He looked off to the side for a moment. I think I would need some more time to think about that. I mean, he cleared his throat. We haven't even graduated yet, and I don't know, he was usually a smooth talker, but at this point he couldn't get the words out. I'm not proposing to you or anything, he said with a frown. I just think I needed you to know. Not that I'm expecting you to feel the same way, he said angrily. And when I look at Annette I wish she was you. I hate it. Oh. Haha. He laughed nervously. There I go. Always thinking of marriage before anything else, he put his hand on the back of his neck and took a deep breath. But, you really fancy me that much, huh? So much that you're willing to break up with your girlfriend to be with me? Or, you like me so much that you were willing to meet here with me in secret and kiss me? He looked around some more. That explains why you were so sour around Annette a few days ago, and when we went into town, you completely changed. I was willing to do it in secret because I knew it would never happen again. You're the straightest guy I've ever met, he said, avoiding Sylvain's eyes. Whatever. Just get out of here before I start to believe something that isn't true. Don't tell anyone. Okay? Especially Ingrid. Sylvain demanded. Well, I don't know why you would tell anyone. I'm the blabbermouth, except not when it comes to stuff like this. I can keep a secret. He gave Felix a serious look. If you want me to go, I'll go. He started backing up. I'll talk to you later, okay? He looked at him for a few seconds more, then turned around and walked away. He passed by a million girls on his way back to his room, but didn't even look at a single one since his mind was still on what just happened. Flame chased after him. Sylvain! She shouted, what on Ciro's green earth were you two doing back there? She looked upset. Everyone in the church could hear you. We are in the middle of a mass. I think I will tell Seath what you two have been doing. She frowned, looking disgusted that her prayer session was being disturbed. He was speed walking, obviously wanting to get away as soon as possible. When he heard Flane's voice, he jumped, wondering why she was chasing after him. Oh, hi Flane. What do you? His face turned pale and his eyes widened. No. He shook his head. Don't you dare tell anyone. How did you even? What did you? He frustratedly put his hands on the sides of his face. Flane, you cannot tell Seath. You cannot tell anyone. Do you understand? And why not? She folded her arms. You cannot be doing such naughty acts behind the church. She pouted. What would the saints think? She exclaimed. Seath. No. He reached over and covered her mouth with his hand to get her to stop yelling. Seath walked up behind Sylvain and yanked him away. If I see you touching Flane again, I will not hesitate to throw you beyond the walls of Garreg Mach, where you will have no other choice but to go back from where you came. He glared. You have a reputation for being salacious, and I will not tolerate you acting that way towards Flane. You are lucky I am even letting you stay. Sylvian's face turned even paler. Seath, that's not what I was doing. I know better than that. You gotta believe me, Seath. Flynn responded, still I find it awfully insulting that you would put your hands on me, even knowing that was not your intention. And, she looked up at Seath. Yes. He is very naughty. Sylvain blushed, the color returning to his face. I'm not naughty, all the time. He shrugged like he was trying to get himself out of this mess. Flane's right. She caught me kissing a girl behind the church wall. Sorry saints. I'll be more respectful next time, he let out a nervous laugh. Seath crossed his arms and shook his head, scrutinizing Sylvain for a moment. Detention is in order. 1 week for your scandalous behavior near the cathedral, another week, and 2 days for touching Flane inappropriately. All I did was shush her. He checked the surrounding area, not wanting anyone overhearing this. Flane added, it wasn't a girl. He was kissing a boy. And you can take away the other week. He did not touch me, brother. At least, not in that way, she told him truthfully. Sylvain's head slowly turned to Flane and he glared at her, obviously upset that she told Seath. Seath raised an eyebrow. All right, then, he cleared his throat. I shall take away the week only because I believe Flane. He gave Sylvain a disciplinary glare. It is not my place to police who you seek affection from, but do not take part in such activities in the sacred resting place of others. Do you understand? He pointed to Sylvain. Yes, he frowned and looked at the floor, seeming highly insecure. Flane took Seath's hand. Goodbye Sylvain. The priestesses and I are very disturbed at what we heard during prayer. She walked away with Seath. What? What you heard during prayer? He just put his head in his hands and shook his head as she walked away. What am I going to do? Why did I do that? Why? He started walking back to his room again, conflicted and embarrassed. Just as he was about to walk into his room, Annette ran into him. Oh. Sylvain, hello. She smiled. How have you been? Startled, he turned around. Ah. He cleared his throat, looking extremely flustered. Oh, haha. Annette, hi. He cleared his throat again. I don't know why you surprised me that much. I guess I was, just not paying attention. Oh. She giggled. Okay then. What have you been up to? I didn't see you or Mercy at training today. Me? Oh. I actually finished my training early today. I figured it would give me some time later in the afternoon to chat with some girls. Which is what I did do. I chatted up some lovely ladies, and that's exactly what I did. Yeah, well, I'm sure you did, she said, rolling her eyes. Anyways, have you seen Felix? I haven't seen him at all today. I'm a little worried. He hasn't been talking to me at all lately. Nope. He said that a little louder than he meant to. No, I didn't. Maybe he's in his room or something. That seems like a place he would be, right? He started sweating. What the, are you okay? Annette asked with a frown. And I know he's not in there. I checked. What's going on? No. He laughed and waved his hand a little. I mean yes. Yes, I'm fine. I'm okay. He emphasized the yes when he corrected himself. Nothing is going on. I just had an awkward time with a girl, that's all. Oh, you. I don't know if I want to hear about this, she said, shaking her head. Well, thanks for your help anyways. I'm gonna keep looking around. No. You don't. And I don't want to talk about it, so, yeah. He shook his head. If you're looking for Felix, maybe check the indoor training area? Maybe even somewhere around it? Just don't check the cathedral. I know he's not there. Yeah. Okay, see ya. He quickly walked away from her, wiping the sweat from his face with his sleeve. Annette stared at him for a while. Okay, bye. She said it more as a question than anything. Soon enough, Mercedes came back from prayer, so she decided to talk to her instead. Sylvain guessed that the secret would probably be out now that Annette was talking with Mercedes. Chapter 10, I love this library. The day dragged on, and no signs of the murderer had surfaced yet. Linhard, Casper, Dorothea, and Ingrid were all sitting with one another on the greenery just outside the Black Eagle's classroom. Linhard laid in the grass, using his arms as a makeshift pillow. I don't know about you all, but all this talk of murder and suspicion is utterly exhausting. And, in addition, the nights are denying me access to my favorite places to nap. He frowned, closing his eyes. Ingrid nodded, I agree. She replied, looking at Dorothea. We're a bit nervous due to everything that's been happening around here lately, she said with a small sigh. Oh yeah. That whole death thing was unacceptable. Casper punched his palm. When I find whoever did that, I'm gonna beat them up so hard they'll be seeing stars for the rest of their life. He looked angry. A girl walked by them, giggling after looking across the courtyard at Felix. She looked at them as if they knew what she was laughing at, then walked away. Linhard opened his eyes after hearing the girl laugh, then looked back at his friends. What's going on over there? I swear these days it's just one strange thing after the next. He sat up. Why are they laughing at Felix? I have no clue, Ingrid said, turning around to catch a glimpse of Felix, who was standing just beneath a tree, looking into the open Blue Lion's classroom. I haven't heard anything, she said. Neither have I. And I honestly don't care. I'm going to find some place quiet to sleep. You all take care. Linhard yawned and started walking away. Casper looked at Ingrid and Dorothea after Linhard left. Hey, I gotta catch up with him, but do any of you know why he's been avoiding me lately? He says he's not mad at me, but non-angry people don't avoid their best friends. He crossed his arms. Dorothea shook her head. I'm not sure. If I were you, I would get him a gift or something, she said with a small smile. A gift? Maybe. He likes books though. And I'm no good at picking out books. Unless they're picture books, I'll figure it out. Thanks. Stay safe guys. He waved to them and ran to catch up with his friend. A few days passed. Nothing related to the murder happened, but the monastery had been really dramatic lately. There was a note on Felix's desk this time that said, "Meet me in the library after class." Felix picked up the note and read it. No way Sylvain would want to talk to him after what happened, he thought. Class had been over for a while, and he hoped he hadn't kept whoever was waiting. He slowly stepped into the library, walking down the left-hand aisle. It wasn't a super busy time for the library, so nobody was in there at the moment. At least, it didn't look like anyone was in there until Sylvain peeked out from behind a bookshelf, waving at him over. PSSST. It's me. Over here, he whispered quite loudly. If there were people in the library, they totally would have heard him. WH what? Felix stammered, hurrying behind the bookshelf where Sylvain was beckoning to him. What are you doing? He sternly asked. I didn't think you'd want to talk to me again. Sylvain shook his head. Well, you're wrong actually. In fact, I've been trying to talk to you for the past 3 days but I couldn't get close without people making humiliating comments. Okay. Well, I don't really care what people say about me. I'm used to it. But you? Nope. I'm not gonna let that slide. So here we are. He leaned his arm against the bookshelf, standing an awkward distance from Felix. Wait what? Hang on. Is this why I've been getting weird looks in the halls? He grabbed Sylvain by the collar. Who did you tell? Sylvain shook his head. Nobody. I didn't tell a single soul. Really, why would I tell anyone about that? That's the sort of thing I wouldn't tell anybody. Hell, I don't even think about it around other people just because I'm scared they can read my mind. Felix loosened his grip, but kept his hands on his collar. Right, he said with a small sigh. Somehow people know. Seems to me everyone's talking about it. I say let 'em talk. You're not usually the talk of the town, but I'm used to it. I'm already subject to, probably thousands of rumors by now. What's another one going to do? My reputation can't get any worse. He shrugged. He didn't want to tell Felix that Flane saw, though. I've got your back. As in secret's safe with me. Another rumor will take this one's place soon enough, and everyone will forget about it. That's reassuring, Felix quickly said. Thanks. I don't care about any stupid rumors either, but something in his voice hinted that he wasn't comfortable with so many people talking about him. Sylvain let him trail off, staring at him like he was waiting for something to happen. When nothing did, he sighed and grabbed Felix, pulling him closer. Sua? If you don't care, Thien. Felix pushed away a tiny bit. Wait, what are you saying? He quietly asked. Sylvain replied, You don't know the first thing about sneaking around, do you? The back of the library is the perfect spot to make out where nobody can see. Why else would I have brought you all the way back here if we're not gonna mess around a bit? He checked his shoulder just in case, but the library was empty. You mean you feel the same? Felix asked, unable to stop the smile that spread across his face. This is the last thing I expected from you. Whoa, you're smiling. Now that's a strange thing to see. I can't tell if I like it. His eyes fixated on Felix's lips. But, yeah. I wanna kiss you again, Felix. Because the last time you kissed me was the most sincere a person has ever been with me. You know. Felix dropped his smile and blushed, looking off to the side. Yeah, well, you always had a different girl hanging on your shoulder. Nobody ever stuck around for too long. Okay. It's not my fault if they have a problem with me, is it? He shrugged. You know. I don't feel so pressured when I'm with you. 'Cause I know girls only want me for my crest, if they even want me at all. But what good is my crest to you? That doesn't matter. I never really thought of it that way before. He raised an eyebrow. Yes, that's true, he said with a small sigh. I couldn't care less about your crest. I don't know why, but I'm embarrassed. Just about this whole thing. But, he looked up. Every time I think of you, something feels different than it used to. Embarrassed? Oh come on Felix, what is there to be embarrassed about? What's so embarrassing about wanting to spend your life with someone you match perfectly with? And no, this is not just one of my lines. I mean it, Felix. How, he stammered, or why do you feel the same? He asked, it makes no sense to me. I've been so mean to you. Felix, you're like the person who I'm closest with. No matter how many times we argue, that doesn't change the way I think of you. Yeah, sometimes it hurts when you say I'm a lost cause and all that, but I know you don't really mean it, do you? He asked. I don't, he said quietly, leaning backwards against a bookshelf. After Glenn he stopped talking and grit his teeth, holding his head in his hands. God. After Glenn you just what? Go on, he urged. I may not seem like it, but I'm actually pretty good support. Contrary to what people say, I do care about how people feel when it comes to relationships. I feel like a completely different person, Felix admitted. I hate it. I just hate everyone and everything makes me angry. He sounded like he might cry. Sylvain went quiet for a moment, letting Felix's words soak in. Well, angry or not, I still love you the same. He said, people change. It's a part of life. But in the end, you have to care about people unconditionally. At least, that's what I think, anyway. He looked down to the side. I really don't deserve you, Sylvain, he admitted. Thanks. He said quickly. He moved forward towards Sylvain, but accidentally knocked a few books off the shelf with his elbow. Sylvain quickly caught the books before they could make a loud clatter on the floor, and he smiled. You impressed by my reflexes? I almost looked as sharp as you during training. He let out a soft laugh as he put the books back in the wrong spots. Felix was too busy watching Sylvain that he didn't notice the placement. He chuckled. Shut up. He smirked, then pulled Sylvain over to him and kissed him. He laughed when Felix pulled him over. Finally. I was starting to think you were gonna leave without what we came here to do in the first place. He kissed him back. Meanwhile, it sounded like there was some shuffling in the library. Sylvain heard the shuffling, but was too absorbed in the moment to think anything of it. Felix pulled away very slightly and stayed still, listening. I love this library. Oh, and over here is my favorite. It was Ignaz's voice. Marianne spoke next. Oh, it's so pretty. Sylvain frowned when he heard the voices, freezing up as well. He did a little gasp and swiped a book from the shelf. Quick. Make it look like we're studying. He posed unnaturally with the book, using his other hand to make his clothes and hair look a little neater. Okay. Felix swiftly replied. For some reason his first instinct was to lean his arm on Sylvain's shoulder and look at the same book. Ignaz and Marianne walked past the aisle and turned towards them. Oh. Hello. Ignaz waved. Hey Ignaz. We're just hitting the books, if you know what I mean. He was holding the book upside down, and it was a cookbook, which he didn't notice when he pulled it off the shelf. Marianne. Looking pretty as always. He tried not to deviate from his normal behavior. What? Ignaz laughed. The book is upside down, he pointed out. It seems like maybe something was going on back here that you don't want anyone to know about. He joked, not knowing it was the exact scenario. Marianne shyly looked away from the two of them. Sylvain's face turned a little red, but he tried not to let his nervousness show. What? No. We're studying, see? See the book. He noticed it was a cookbook and upside down, then became a tad more nervous. We were challenging each other to see who could read best upside down. Nothing going on here that shouldn't be going on here, that's for sure. Felix elbowed him in the gut. Ignaz laughed nervously. Okay then. It was nice talking to you. He started to walk out. Marianne glanced up at Sylvain quickly before following Ignaz out. Felix sighed. That was bad. Sylvain waited until Marianne and Ignaz were out before turning to Felix. Ow. You didn't have to jab me like that. They had no idea we covered for ourselves perfectly. He put the book back, making sure that it went in the right spot this time. Whatever. Felix sighed, peeking back at the doors to make sure nobody else walked in. He walked up to Sylvain and kissed him again, trying not to waste any more time. After Sylvain pulled away, the school bell rang. He looked up at the sky as if that was where it was coming from. Ah damn. I forgot about class. Looks like we'll have to put a bookmark in it for now. He gave Felix a small kiss on the cheek. But before we go, I actually have a little something for you. He stood with his hands behind his back. For me. He seemed stunned. Really? Okay, what is it? He asked, attempting to sneak a peek behind Sylvain's back. Why do you seem so shocked? He turned a little bit to obscure his view. No peeking. That will ruin the surprise. He backed up a little closer to the bookshelf so Felix couldn't look behind him. So. I just wanna say thank you. You know, for treating me like a human being and all. And for making me feel like one. There's really nobody else out there like you. So that's why I got you. He pulled out a little charm that was supposed to hook onto the hilt of his sword. It had a few cool-looking charms on it. This one-of-a-kind charm. He smiled. Thought you might want to look at it and think of me while you're swinging your sword. Felix thought it was so cute. He blushed and took the charm, smiling huge. Thank you. He said simply, this. I like it. A lot. He tried to act cool but in truth, he felt so giddy. One of the charms was a little cat. You do? Huh. I expected you to tell me it was stupid, and then I'd find it in the trash a few days later. He laughed, then gave him a friendly nudge. All right. Let's get going. The professor is gonna get mad if we're late. Felix pocketed the charm, but grabbed Sylvain's arm before he could turn away. Wait. Sylvain, he spoke quietly. Sylvain started walking, but he stopped after he took one step because Felix grabbed him. He turned around and raised his eyebrows. It seemed as if he was going to say something, but he hesitated. I feel like maybe we He stopped again. Never mind. Come on. Maybe we would. He frowned, but not because he was upset. He was just intrigued and wanted to hear what he had to say. Never mind. Okay. Got it. I won't force you to say anything. He gave him a short look of concern before leading the way. Felix continued to hold on to his hand, even after they exited the library. He quickened his pace, knowing they'd be late if they didn't hurry. Sylvain dropped Felix's hand once they were out and around people. He didn't really talk to Felix on the way to class, but he sat next to him during the lesson. Check the description for the links to the author.